found it. It's the real news with your host, David Knight.
We have an update on the Bundy Ranch. You know, these individuals have been in jail for over 2 years. Remember the poem? No man survives when freedom fails. The best men rot in filthy jails, and that's what's been happening. The best men have been rotting in jails for 2 years, except for those who were killed. And now it's starting to turn. I've got an update on this. We have an update from Brian Hyde, whose Facebook page, Who's Next, covers this, as well as some updates from Redoubt News. Usually we've had Shari Dovale on, but it's this came out late yesterday. It was difficult to reach her on such short notice. So I've got an update from Brian Hyde. His Facebook page is Who's Next? Yeah, who is next? Who is next? If they can take the best among us, because freedom is failing, they can have them rotting in filthy jails for 2 years. Well, it's changed now a little bit. A little bit of relief for these people. They haven't just been rotting in filthy jails. They've been tortured by these people. And now Cliven Bundy, Ammon Bundy, Ryan Bundy, who is representing himself, was released to home detention a couple of weeks ago. Judge Gloria Navarra has granted a pretrial release to Cliven Bundy and Ammon Bundy. This does not mean, says the Bundy Ranch on their Facebook page, this does not mean that the trial is over. The court order allows Cliven and Ammon Bundy the right to go to a court-approved home during the pendency of their trial. All three men have been in prison for nearly 2 years without bond. Ryan was released from prison earlier this month, but remains in trial for conspiracy, extortion, and more. What a travesty this is. These political prisoners, because they were fighting for freedom, folks, and they put them in jail, and they've kept them there for years. AP picked it up, says Cliven Bundy has refused to leave because there are others who have not been granted release. And his lawyer said, well, he is a man of strong principles, and he is. The best among us are locked up in filthy jails, and that's the Bundy family. They have fought for your rights, folks. You may not realize it, but if they don't have any property rights, you're not going to have any either. Other farmers, other miners, other ranchers are not going to have loggers. When they take away their rights, they're coming for you next. You're not going to have any property rights. And you know, when I took a vacation before this show began, we went up to the Washington area, and sure enough, they were going through and they were going to take away the suburban homes of people as they were going to expand their parks. They're going to take away their homes. Now, we understand, as we were reporting on this when it happened, there were a lot of reasons why Harry Reid and others wanted to drive all the ranchers off of that land. They had been there since before Nevada was a state, many of them. And the Bundy family was the last group there. They had driven off about 50 different ranchers. Many of their neighbors came to their defense, and we went to cover it because it looked like it was going to be another Ruby Ridge or Waco situation. The violent people, the people who were committing threats, were the government, were the BLM. And I want to give you an update from Redoubt News, Shari Dovale's Redoubt News. The BLM and the FBI exposed, or how the Bundys got released. What was it that turned this around? Because Judge Navarro was somebody that has been shutting down all kinds of information to the juries. They're still not allowing them to know about the crimes of this corrupt individual who is running this for the BLM, Dan Love. He's still not allowed to be talked about. Took it completely off the table in previous trials, said, you will not talk about the BLM. You will not talk about Dan Love. You still can't talk about Dan Love. And this is what has happened. She pointed out that he's been offered release but refused it. He will wait until the remaining defendants, including 2 more of his sons, are also offered release. These defendants have been incarcerated for nearly 2 years, though the judge has just recently ruled against their pretrial release. She's changed her mind. Well, what happened with this judge? Because she is so biased in favor of the government, hiding information, gagging people. At one point, remember in the previous trial, they were trying to put in jail for life sentences, these people. The one individual that was shown laying prone on the bridge that overlooked the washout down there where I was with all the different people standing, and he had a gun, and he was down behind some concrete barriers, and there was an individual there who testified and said he stopped to see what was going on, and there were other people that were crouched down, and the defense attorney said, were you afraid? Yes, I was afraid. Well, obviously he wasn't afraid of this guy on the ground. He was crouching down next to him, hiding behind a concrete barrier. And he said, well, what were you afraid of? And he was about to say, the BLM guys who are down there threatening to shoot those of us who are down on the ground. And perhaps people up on the bridge as well. But she gagged him, said, you can't talk about that. You can't talk about that. So there was a sealed hearing yesterday morning. And the court discussed the false narrative that the prosecution's been perpetrating. This is from Redoubt News. And she says, I'm sure they did not call it that, but nevertheless, that's what it was. The government has been trying to get everyone to believe many false statements, beginning with the fact that Cliven Bundy is this multimillionaire rancher. That is, nothing is further from the truth, folks. If he was a multimillionaire rancher, he'd have some legal counsel. She said he owed fees of $9,000. He was never sent a bill for grazing fees. They added their administrative fees to get the total up to $300,000, far less than $1.1 million they've been repeating throughout the controlled and biased media that we'll be talking about coming up in the next segment. Another falsehood is the camera placed strategically to surveil the Bundy Ranch during the days that led off to the standoff. The prosecution continued to deny that there were any cameras. Then they were forced to admit it in this particular trial. Previous trials, they denied that there was any such thing as a camera. And then we found out that no, there's 3, possibly 4 cameras. There were also snipers. Yes, we all saw them there. People were saying, hey, look through the binoculars. You can see the snipers up there. They'd been placed in strategic areas. And they said, no. They even mocked Ryan Bundy in previous trials and said, hey, it's conspiracy theorists, saying that there were snipers. Now, they got pictures of the snipers that came out in this particular trial. And she said, it's been previously discussed how the government attempted to hide required discovery evidence by burying it deep in massive amounts of unrelated documents, including 2 full novels and unrelated medical records. See, if you want to hide your needle, what do? You put it in a great big haystack, and they create a great big haystack, about 4 terabytes. So it's hard for people to get through that. The FBI did a threat assessment on the Bundys at the beginning, said they were not a threat. You know who was a threat? Dan Love and the BLM. And finally, after all of the lies were exposed, this judge, who is even biased, so incredibly biased in previous trials, said, I don't think they're a threat. We're going to let them go home while this trial is happening.